Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of the Why I Love Disney podcast. My name is Dustin. I'm here with my pals David and JD. What is up, fellas?
Hey, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's raining like a monsoon here too, and hopefully don't get flooded out too much. But hey, man, it's been a good week. The weather's kind of like feeling a little. You get a little hints of spring. And for us up here in Tennessee and Kentucky, that matters. To JD, it's always summer and sunny and nice.
Here.
So I don't even want to hear about it.
You guys just need to come here. That's what it is.
Yes, we do. You are right. If we didn't have such obligations, we would be right there with you for sure. But man, it's been a good week. How about you guys?
Pretty good. Can't complain.
JD, I hear you had an extra good week. You and your wife, you spent some time in the parks.
Yeah,
again.
It was a crazy one. So we actually spent this past weekend, and we needed a little getaway from classes. It's been a crazy semester. So we planned this St. Augustine weekend, went to go see a concert. And our plan was to go see the concert on Friday and then drive to Orlando on Saturday. And then go to the parks on Sunday. And then we also had a Magic Kingdom reservation for Saturday, so go there that night. Just a pretty relaxed, simple trip because we have those annual passes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Time out. What concert?
So it's actually, I'm not a huge fan, but McKay's a huge fan of jazz. So it's Count Basie Orchestra. Really classical.
Okay, cool.
It was actually in this amphitheater in this park, and it's this big orchestra, and they used to perform with Frank Sinatra and some big names, and they've just been around for a really long time. So it was a really cool atmosphere. We found the tickets, so we were like, why not just make a whole trip out of it? And it was actually really fun. It was a good time.
Was that in St. Augustine?
Yeah, that's where it was.
Dude, had you been to St. Augustine before?
Which is why I really wanted to do it. It was beautiful.
Dude, St. Augustine is one of my favorite places in Florida. Like, it's fantastic. It's like, I think is the oldest settlement in North America.
That's right.
If I'm not mistaken.
There's a whole lot of history.
And there's still like, dude, you downtown is just the coolest place. And it feels like old Spanish Florida, you know. You go on the ghost tours and there's that big castle, the Casa, it's a hotel now, but the Casa, whatever it is. And man, that's a super awesome place to go hang out. Not what couple hours from Orlando?
It was like, I think it was like
something
2.
like that.
I think it was right on the dot at 2.
Okay.
But yeah, I got to see Flagler College, which was cool. It's super historical.
Yep.
It's cool to just see history because I've always told McKay the one thing that, you know, it's fun to go to European countries because they've got such rich history. And you can go to cathedrals from, 300, 400 years ago. And so it was fun to kind of get to see that aspect of history, but be in Florida, which is where my state was cool.
Yeah. That's about as old as it gets in the United States.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. That's really what's cool about it. I love St. Augustine. Yeah. Good for you, man. Glad y'all got out to do that. So you went to St. Augustine, then moved over to some park stuff
went crazy. So me and McKay were young. We're balling on a budget. So McKay's got this app. I can't remember the name of the app, but it's this platform where you can get hotels the day of, and you can usually get them for a pretty good price because hotels are just like, hey, look, we've got some extra rooms. You can get a good deal. So we always kind of do that when we do just one-night stays because it's simple. We don't have to worry about booking. So I did all the Disney part. You have to do reservations. We did our reservations. We actually did Be Our Guest on Saturday night at Magic Kingdom because it's McKay's absolute favorite, and they never have reservations available. So
okay, what is
Be
that?
Our Guest
what is Be Our Guest?
It's a pretty high-end, but really fun and cool, immersive restaurant. Of course, it's themed after Beauty and the Beast. Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast.
So.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's over in Fantasyland, right?
That's right.
Right.
In Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So it's one of my favorite restaurants because it's so immersive, and you sit in the ballroom of, the Beast Castle, and then you have the West Wing and the East Wing. And it's really cool. It's pretty pricey, but because of its theming, you usually can't get reservations within that 30-day window just because so many people want to experience it and sit in there. But what I like about it is you pay that flat fee and they give you a choice of appetizer, an entree, and then they bring you a dessert. And instead of making you pick between desserts, they give you a sample of all 3 of their desserts. So you get like the gray stuff, this like strawberry flavored macaroon, and then this dark like mousse,
Ooh.
Dessert, which I love because I love to just pay the price if you have to, but then just not having to worry about it, not having to look at the the different prices, and just to kind of be pampered. So I love it because of that. McKay loves it because Beauty and the Beast. But we did that.
That's her
that's
favorite,
her
right?
absolute favorite.
That's cool.
Also, Beast walks around the whole time, and he's there he used to greet people, but now he just kind of walks around.
And hopefully he grooms beforehand, because I would hate to have shedding and hair all over a restaurant, So as long as they do that and we keep the smells, the pet smells out, I'm cool.
But so we did that. Good thing we did that, because the parks were absolutely insane. Like crazy lines, crazy everything. We actually got to ride some good rides because we were just like, we're not going to watch the fireworks. So as people were doing fireworks, we, rode some rides. But so we tried to get a hotel, and that whole day, like since like the morning, we'd been looking at all the hotel websites, calling, doing anything, and just nothing's available. And we just have 2 people. I mean, we just need one standard room, as standard as you can get. We look at, the La Quintas, we look at the Days Inn, we even look at the motels, but then we even look at like Disney resorts to see if just anything's available. And nothing's available. And the only things that we did find were like, because there was such a scarcity of rooms available, hotels were spiking the prices to like $500 for like moderate Holiday Inns. I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen anything like this. So we start.
And Orlando is a place of abundant hotel rooms.
So you think, oh, for sure. And then I was like, McKay, it's okay. Like this has happened before, where everything in that little Disney bubble is reserved. We'll just go, 30 minutes out. We have a car, so we're completely fine. So we start calling around, and still the same thing. Nothing's available. We literally get on a call with this like hotel, reservation, helper assistant. And she goes, okay, I'm looking 200 miles out, and there's barely anything available. And then she's like, oh, okay, I found something. Do you want me to try and book for you? And we're like, yeah, just see if you can do it. Like, we'll just drive the hour out, or, drive whatever. Just so we don't have to drive all the way back to West Palm. And you're like, all right, we'll pay $100. But then she goes, okay. And even that far out, it was like $400 for these moderate, value. So we end up.
What is this? Is President's Day weekend?
Yeah.
Yes.
That it still doesn't seem like the high travel time for
February.
Central Florida.
I mean, it's February.
Yeah. But I do know that's why when I went down to meet him a couple of weeks ago, I was trying not to be there President's Day week, because I knew it's like you get the extra day, people pull kids out of school for an extra day or two, and it's just a crazy time.
Well, did you at least go to the Hall of Presidents to celebrate?
Magic Kingdom was the night, so we rode the People Mover a couple of times. Then we got the reservation, which was at 9:30, and the park closed at 10. But it was actually really cool because we really took our time, and like we got out of the park, or we got done eating. I think it was like 10:40, and nobody was in the park. So we just like slowly walked out, and like that never happens anymore. So we like slowly walked out and like got to enjoy that. That was definitely a highlight. But so we end up.
Did you find a place to stay?
We slept in my car. We literally just put the seats back. We were so tired. We were like, look, like it's gonna be hundreds of dollars. We can sleep in the car, put the seat back, find a nice parking lot. So we did it, and we slept till
go look for the nice parking lot.
We literally did that, and so we wake up. We set our alarms for like 6 a.m. Which when we were up, we were like, I don't want to go back to sleep. We park at the Floridian. We go into the Floridian, they've got really nice restrooms. I don't know if you guys have seen the restrooms. We brush our teeth. I shave. I put my head under like the faucet and like put some shampoo and kind of like dried it off. And then at 7 a.m. we made our Genie Plus selections, because we were like, all right, we have to do Genie Plus. Like I'm always like, we come so often, I'm not going to do it. But if we're going to ride any ride, we've got to do Genie Plus. So we did it, groggy, but also just kind of happy, and surprisingly felt better than we imagined. We got some coffee, and then we started our day with Epcot, did Remy's Ratatouille because we had never ridden the ride together, got some breakfast, and then went over to the Hollywood Studios. And just crazy wait times. And even with Genie Plus, we were like, we're going to have to wait 3 hours for, literally any ride, and just kind of called it early because we were tired, and got back in West Palm and just chilled for the rest of the day. Crazy.
That's amazing, JD. Hey, and one thing a lot of people don't realize if you don't go or if you haven't experienced Genie Plus, it's just because you're paying for it doesn't mean you get it. Like, I mean, there's 40 rides, whatever, that are included, but you can only schedule one every 2 hours or after it used to be, when you completed it, but now you can every 2 hours from the time you start, you can book another one. But by afternoon, by 12 or 1 o'clock, all that's left are things that you don't need a fast pass for anyway. So, I mean, that's why you're going to still end up spending an hour a wait for a couple of things on a crowded day like that, even if you have Genie Plus. You're not going to just jump on every ride.
Now, using it with you, Dad, and using it with McKay, I've kind of averaged out. You get roughly between 2, most likely 3, if you're lucky, 3 good rides. Which is, again, it's kind of when you look at fast passes, like, well, that was what it was before. You got 3 fast passes per day, but now you have to pay for it. But of course, it's quick. It's a quick process. That was another thing where you fly through the lightning lanes quicker than any fast pass that I remember. But the downside of that is when you're in the standby lane, you're watching, people fly through the line and they're barely being, 50, 30 to 50 people in the lightning lane, and they're prioritizing that over these 2-hour lines. And it's kind of it can be discouraging.
Yeah, I just heard I had not heard this before, but I heard a cast member, a former cast member on a podcast talking about how they have different processes where they'll tell them today, you let this many lightning lane people for every standby person, and other days so it could be 20 people for every standby person. It might be 30. It can fluctuate depending on the crowd. But when John David and I were there a couple of weeks ago, I mean, we even saw like Space Mountain, which has 2 tracks. One was completely devoted to lightning lane. So if you were in standby, it was a 2-hour wait. And if you looked over across the room to the other line, there was nobody in line. It was just people are just moving. And,
it's almost as if they are trying to promote their Genie Plus service.
Oh, 100%.
Yes.
And really trying to make it miserable on you if you don't buy it.
Which I said from the beginning, like, I think fans are going to buy it, even though people online were going, "Hey, we're not going to do this. We're going to stand up and say we're not doing this." I knew I would cave. I knew that people would do it. So, but the whole time, what are they going to do if everybody buys it? Because then it's like if everybody has a fast pass, nobody has a fast pass. And so we saw something in the news this week that addresses that. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is literally yesterday, the Street reported that Disney's making a change, and I mentioned it to you guys before we started recording. And John David's like, "Oh, that's why that happened." They will not let you, if you have a single day reservation at the park, they will not let you pre-buy Disney Plus. You can only buy it the day of your visit, and then you may not get it. Because it's like they're only giving so many of them out. And that's what John David, I think you experienced that a little bit.
Yeah, so again, I was having to stay awake until 12 o'clock, literally 12:01, just to buy it. And then you also have to set your alarm for 7 a.m. to reserve it. So it's like, it's just another thing that you're having to set an alarm for. That's just like, I'm on vacation. I really don't have to stay awake till 12 and then set my alarm. It's like, that was the thing with Dad when we went. It was like we'd have these long days, and I was like, gosh, I got to set my alarm for, 6:50. So I make sure I'm up awake, tapping on the screen and making sure I get it, just so I know that I will be able to ride 3 rides. That was my problem with it. I mean, again, I've kind of come to terms that you're going to have to pay for it, but I'm like, at least let me schedule it out a couple of weeks before, so that when I'm at my park, enjoying my weekend, it can just all be taken care of, and I don't have to be constantly looking at my phone.
I think that's an interesting thing. The experience, how that changes.
I have a feeling that that's why you got a reservation at Be Our Guest on Saturday night. Is because I do think that there will be a limit at some point for a lot of families, that if you're going to spend that $15 per person in your family per day, you could spend up to $40 to $100, say, that you're going to probably cut a meal. You're going to cut some.
Yeah.
I think that's where I'd go. I'm going to go. I won't buy any merchandise. You know, I won't go to a restaurant.
Yeah, which that will be interesting to see the long-term effects. I know we've looked at a lot of statistics with, Disney, higher ups saying, look, our numbers are crushing it right now. We've got more people in the park paying more than ever. And it's like, okay, that's right now. But once that starts going around where you're having to pay more than ever, it's like, are those same families going to come next year? Or are they going to go somewhere else? It's like those statistics will be the ones that will be interesting.
Well, that was also – go ahead, David.
I was just going to say the strange thing is that they have such the ability to – you get frustrated. Like we had an experience a couple of weeks ago where we got in line for Millennium Falcon's Smuggler's Run. The line said 35 minutes, and it ended up being a 2-hour line. And we were kind of stuck. And I started getting pretty discouraged. Like, this is crazy. And then we got out. We had a fast pass for Slinky Dog. So we're like, woo! And then we did something else. And then you kind of forget. That frustration like gets covered up, and then you go home and you don't really remember, like, unless we're talking about this. All I just remember is having a great time, and I think that's what happens. People are enduring these things because they're enjoying something, another aspect of it so much that they're pushing through.
Well, it seems to be working too, because Bob Chapek in this article from The Street made it clear in their first quarter earnings call that the loss of Fast Pass Plus has not hurt the theme park business at all. In fact, he's quoted as saying in the first quarter, more than a third of domestic park guests purchased either Genie Plus, Lightning Lane, or both. And that number rose to more than 50% during the holiday period. And while demand was strong throughout the quarter at both domestic sites, the reservation system enabled them to strategically manage attendance. And he says, in fact, their stellar performance was achieved at lower attendance level than 2019. So they're actually making more money with fewer people. And that seems to be kind of the goal going forward. And there seems to be this thing too, like how much can they charge before people stop coming? And so far, they haven't hit that yet, and for better or worse, I don't know, like, long term what this is like, what this looks like, but it doesn't seem like they're slowing down on this. It seems like this is the new normal for them.
We were there New Year's Eve of 2019. That's like one of the craziest, busiest times, and it did not feel as crowded then as it did when I was here a couple of weeks ago in February. So, you're going, I don't know if more people are getting out because of the pandemic, that it's like, hey, we can finally go somewhere. Again, we saw just tons of people in the middle of February with children that were elementary age that obviously they took them out of school. So people are just, maybe they're just determined to get out right now, and it has not. But I do think a lot of it is the lines is the Genie Plus. It's what's creating really long lines. If you're in standby, you're just gonna have to endure it.
But you're exactly right though, that we went New Year's, and it felt like the same numbers when we went in February. So what does that mean? There's more people, there's more traffic. So if there's more traffic, that means there's still not, the show numbers are not back. The entertainment numbers are not back. There's not enough attractions that aren't rides. I mean, yes, we've brought this back and we're bringing Fantasmic back, but it's nowhere near to the fact of like their holiday season. So it's leaving rides the only way to take up, all this crazy traffic, which again, it's perfect for the implementation of Genie Plus when you're centering the park experience to rides. But those numbers are not up to those New Year's attendance levels. I mean, again, so it goes back to, it's all about It's all about the line, and that's how they're getting a lot of people to pay for Genie Plus.
I think the idea of managing expectations and park scheduling and trying to get crowds more dispersed it seems like the theory behind that would be a better experience for everyone, right? Because you spread people out and things are scheduled, better supply, how to meet demand and those sort of, but so far it seems like what I'm hearing from you guys and what I'm reading online myself is that mean, there's still some kinks to work out here. That if you're kind of like you, JD, and you're a season pass holder and you pop in for a day, maybe the experience is not nearly as good as it used to be, or as favorable, I should say. And then maybe for the vacationers that are spending 10 days, maybe it's a little better, you know, but more expensive also. I don't know. I don't know what they do.
Well, it's definitely a new era, and when this started in the reservation system, you know, the hope in it to me was like, well, at least this way they know what they've got to have, and the goal will be to figure out how to handle a large number of guests.
Yeah, I think it's just at a really interesting time where, again, we've talked about the pandemic is starting to go in the other direction. Disney just released Disney World in Orlando. They're not requiring masks anywhere but on transportation. You don't have to wear them inside stores anymore. So obviously they probably have some phase planning where they're just going to keep opening more and more up. So I don't think we're seeing a finished product. But again, and there's still good moments. I mean, I never want to sound like negative because, I mean, like I said, when we went to Magic Kingdom and we had a reservation at 9:30, we got to see the park when nobody else was there, and still just a lot of cool stuff to experience. It's just, again, navigating for even those people who have been a lot, navigating that new experience in the new park kind of way of doing things.
So JD had a great time in the park. I know David and I, being stuck up here where we're at, you know, we have to experience Disney through you, JD, or through Disney Plus. And I think we've all watched a little bit this week. David, what all have you watched this week and consumed on Disney Plus?
Well, I've watched quite a bit on Disney Plus, and I also listened to some great podcasts, some great YouTube videos this week. But on Disney Plus, I finished Boba Fett, and I watched watched the second part of the Beatles documentary. I rewatched, actually even went back and rewatched part of Encanto again to look at these songs in context, and again trying to figure out the mystery of. I love it. I loved it back in November when I saw it at the theater, but I'm still amazed at the publicity it continues to get. I listened to a podcast that's similar to something we've talked about doing soon, but they basically I did this podcast where they compared all these Disney songs and they did a ranking of their favorite Disney songs. Well, actually they weren't doing just their favorites. They were doing the best. This was the best. And like literally the top 10 songs in Disney of all time, I think they picked like all 10 Encanto songs. Like even the Encanto songs you don't remember, they were putting them up so high. And I was going...
recency bias.
And then when they would say, they would compare this, and maybe we don't talk about Bruno, and they were like, oh, we don't talk about it. It's just so incredible. Like they couldn't tell you why. Like they couldn't tell you what they liked about it. It's like, I'm not sure if you know it's incredible or somebody told you it's incredible.
Or you or like it right now. That's how it is too. Like it's on, you're just listening to it a lot. Yeah, just so people know, like this podcast gives you the real scoop, right? We're not pumping up the latest and the greatest. I mean, we're telling you like it is. We're kind of and on music stuff, we got a little bit of expertise in our back pockets too.
It is the latest, and it is great. But it's just fun to watch. It's amusing to figure out, like, do people really love it, or are they just loving it because culturally they know they're supposed to love it? And I've seen, I don't know that we had this with Frozen, which it seemed like it was the last musical. That seemed very like if you had a young girl in your life, a niece, a nephew, a child that was 5 to 12 when Frozen came out. Like it was just consuming how much you heard those songs. But this is like a completely different level because it's not just kids. It's like on social media, everywhere you look, people are talking about it. I had a talk with my mom the other day, and she's a senior adult. She doesn't watch a lot of my parents watch a lot of sports, but she'd heard of Encanto, and she kept saying, what is this? What what is this? Because she kept hearing people talk about it at places, but she doesn't know what it is. And it's amazing. It's everywhere. So I went back and I'm watching the songs and I'm trying to figure out, what is it? What is it that makes it so incredible to people? And this was another interesting thing in this podcast. And I know that we've probably made mistakes in what we've said before, but this was a pretty big podcast. And they talked about that. One of the things it was that because it came out on Disney Plus, and they had forgotten that it had been in the theater. But another podcast I listened to this week said that in the time that it was in the theater, about 10 million people saw it in that whole theater run, to about 10 million. And then, but on Disney Plus, it was like 50 million people saw it in just a week. So
that's amazing.
That just floods.
Times have changed.
It flooded everybody with those songs, just crazy. And it kind of came out at a time when the numbers, were going up and down like this again. Maybe people were staying home, and and I didn't realize, I saw that that Encanto opened I think the same day that Hawkeye premiered on Disney Plus in the theaters. So you had, there might have been people that said, hey, Hawkeye's coming on tonight, and stayed home to watch that because they knew that character and they didn't know what Encanto was. I thought that was kind of interesting. They both opened up Thanksgiving weekend.
I'm with you. Like, if you were making a top Disney songs of all time, I don't know that all of the Encanto songs would be in the top 10, but I do think it's one of the best soundtracks in years, maybe decades.
Yes.
It reminds me a lot of the Aladdin soundtrack, where you had lots of plot points within the songs, right? It was the music was an asset to it wasn't like let me sum up my emotions and tell you how I'm feeling. It's like, let me describe the scene for you in song, right? And I remember, like, growing up, even though maybe I didn't listen you had the Whole New World, like the big ballad, right? Which was the last number one song Disney's had before Bruno, right? But I do think that there was something about gotta steal to eat, gotta eat to live, tell you all about it. When there's all these lyrics that you can still rattle out that just sort of like were incredible, right. and just kind of still part of pop culture. That those things found their way out into the mainstream in a way pre-YouTube, pre-streaming, all of that. This is radio and just people buying the CD and watching the movie over and over and singing it, and people can sing every word of that soundtrack, right? And it was it was a little even a different thing than like Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid soundtrack. It was more percussive. It was more, it was also a cultural thing, right? It was very Middle Eastern sounding, right? And I think that actually had brought some interest to it as well.
It was also the main character was a guy singing. Like we had not had, usually we don't have, in Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, the Beast and Eric, they don't sing. So now you've got Aladdin singing like a young guy. I mean, so I think that's why the music felt a little bit more like that. And one thing that's interesting too about that time is you had those songs like One Jump Ahead that were going to move the plot along, but then you were going to have a song like A Whole New World that really could stand alone out of context, or Can You Feel the Love Tonight? I mean, these songs, it just kind of like, is that a pop song that they put in here? But like, I didn't feel like that in Encanto. It, like, every song feels like it's about the plot.
Cool. I've never really thought of a comparison between Aladdin, but yeah, that's true. That's a lot of similarities. Did you guys see Lin-Manuel had a meeting with Bob Chapek to pitch a attraction idea of Encanto at the parks? How interesting is that? I haven't seen any details.
I did see that headline that he was pitching something. It'll be interesting to see, because a lot of another podcast I listened to this week was talking about that this is such a fast success. Like, usually Disney has these legacy properties like Peter Pan and Cinderella that are 50, 70 years old, and this is so new. And the only movie that's had an attraction, an animated movie that I can think of in years is Frozen. Like it's a 2013 movie. It has attractions, but you look at the movies from the last 20 years, not a lot of them have.
Well, we have the Pixar stuff. You got Toy Story,
Right.
but that feels like a different animal.
But even then, you look at you've got Toy Story. That's 1995.
Yeah.
Monsters Inc.
Oh, that's true.
Nemo, but Merida's in the parks, but you don't see haven't seen a Luca.
And the difference too, you don't know any of those Pixar movies by music.
Right.
You know, they have music and they have some significant songs, but when you think of Toy Story, you don't think of music. You know, you might have the the soundtrack. You know, what's kind of you know, the Friend songs. But they're not known for. Yeah, You Got a Friend in Me. But that's again it's like the Sunflower because of Into the Spider-Verse. It's not like it was a part of the movie that was integral, right? It's interesting. It's just different animal altogether. I'm with you, David. It's fascinating.
Well, when we were there a couple of weeks ago, we got to see Harmonious. This was the second time we've seen it. I will add, I don't think I mentioned this last time. Both times we've seen it, it's had technical difficulties, so we still haven't seen what it's supposed to really be. But both times we saw it, the center screens didn't work. The first time we saw it, the water didn't work. So we saw it again, and I think it closes with a song called Someday, which is a ballad from Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I remember I think it was Boys to Men. They sing it as the song, as the movie's ending. And it's not the biggest song, but I have seen it pop up a lot on different Disney playlists, because I think that pop version was on radio, but it's actually cut from the movie. It was supposed to be a song in the movie. They cut it from the movie, but they used it for the end credits. And that's what they closed Harmonious with, which theme wise, it makes sense. Like Someday, when we're wiser, you know, it has this unity feel to it. But I even heard a rumor that, like, get ready to see that's probably going to get replaced with something from Encanto, because the show kind of ends down. It doesn't end with a big lift. And, you know, I don't know if it'll be Bruno. I'm not sure which song they would pick, but I bet we get a little Encanto in there. But, you know, it seems like it takes them a long time to build an attraction based on a property. Like, they have to know this isn't just a quick success and it's going to be gone tomorrow. This is something that people are going to want to watch. Yeah, you got to put them in the parade first and see the reaction. Yeah. Are they going to watch this in 20 years? Because we get tired of things fast. So are you suggesting that perhaps Encanto will be a flame that burns out, and a year from now we'll be like sick of it? No, I'm not suggesting that. I heard people suggest that online. Like, people say, questioning, could this happen? Like, because this is new. We've never had movies release on Disney Plus. I mean, the whole movie experience has changed. We're not going to the theaters as much. We're watching things. So will we? And we have more content, it seems like, than we've ever had before. So will we still want to do this in 20 years, or will we have moved on to the next thing?
I think that's a good question to ask. Because
again, I grew up when there were like 20, 25 animated movies, and now there are 60. I mean, there's so much. They can't put everything in the park. I wish they would. I think that would be a great goal, even if it's a restaurant or a shop. I mean, they can put a character everywhere. I mean, let a movie be represented. But go ahead. I've seen Frozen 1 and 2 each one time. I've seen Moana probably 2, maybe 2.5 times. I've seen Encanto 5 times. You know what I'm saying? Like, my kids just will watch. It seems to be a kind of a default. Just turn it on and enjoy it again.
Do you think you watch
I don't know
it? Do
if that's
you think
any
you guys
indication.
have watched it a lot because purely off the music? Because every time I hear about it, anything in the news, it's like, listen to this soundtrack, you know, top charts, music. Do you guys think plot wise? I mean, because again, we've talked about, music, you know, anytime you're introduced to a new song, you love it for like a couple of weeks, then you kind of get burnt out. So it's like, yes, they can have classic songs, but like, does the plot, does that back up? I mean, we're talking about having like a legacy.
It does. Yeah, I think it has a lot of
Okay.
shareability. So it's like if my kids go over to my parents' house and they're like, we got to watch, you got to see Encanto. They want my parents to watch it, right? When they have a friend over, if they haven't seen it yet, oh, you got to see this. You know what I'm saying? And I think that has a lot to do with it too. And anytime something goes viral, it has a lot of shareability factor, right? And I think the music is a key. It's the TikTok generation. It's very shareable. And in the movie too, I think is legitimately good. Like it's beautifully. The animation is beautiful. The characters, I think there's some good character development. There's some common themes I think that people can identify with. There's a cultural, kind of context to it that I think is interesting. And I think all of those things together kind of make for a Disney hit. But I do think it's that shareability factor that kind of gives it the special sauce, at least so far. You're right. We could all get sick of, but again, we got sick of that dang Frozen song that
Let It Go.
Let It Go. Yeah. I mean,
it was everywhere.
That comes on the radio. I turn it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to hear that.
I think the first time I remember when Let It Go came out, we went and saw Frozen opening day. Like it came out like Thanksgiving. That was like a family tradition to go in the afternoon, and we went and saw it. But like within like a week, I remember seeing Jimmy Fallon and the Roots did like a toy version of it, and they had like Idina Menzel there with them singing it. I mean, that song exploded fast too. It was just, but it was different. The social media just wasn't the same then. It wasn't.
There's that, and it wasn't nearly as singable. Like it's just, it's an odd song to get super popular. Other than the chorus, which is has the hooks. Let it go. Everybody remembers that stuff, and her voice is amazing. It actually kind of felt like Ariel or Belle, right? It kind of had those nostalgic rings to it as well. But it's not a super singable song.
It's a difficult song to sing for sure.
Well, all you karaoke people that try to do that one, just stop. Just stop this right now. We don't want to hear you try to sing Let It Go.
Hey, everybody had to go look and figure out what frozen fractals on the ground meant. It had lyrics that people were like, what? Hey, I've got a question about Encanto. When I watched it this week, have y'all caught this before? Because you brought up the plot. And I can't, again, this Encanto is still a little bit like Star Wars to me, where I can't remember everybody's names like I want to yet. But the sister that can hear everything, right? Well, it's the first time I noticed she said, I associate Bruno with the sound of sand. Like she knew, because she can hear everything. She knew that, but I noticed this time she tells the young boy, I've heard him. I knew he was here. Mm-hmm. And that kind of surprised me. Like, wait a minute. And when you found out that Mirabel had gotten those shards of glass, and the dad says, nobody has to know. And she's like, I know. And they're like, she's going to tell it. She can't keep a secret. She goes and tells everybody that, but she knows Bruno's in the wall, and she's never told anybody.
Because they don't talk about Bruno.
But you think that she wouldn't have been able to keep it secret? Like, hey, Bruno's hiding in the wall. You go, guys, while we're eating, he's watching us. She doesn't tell it. And that's the first time I caught that. Like, that was a little strange. Like, you could have at least gone up to the wall and said, hey, are you doing anything? Can I pass you a burrito? What can I do for you? You're playing with mice in there.
But I think what we learned, though, I think the way I would explain it, it just is a first like off the cuff sort of thing, is that the idea with Bruno was not that he was dangerous. It was that he caused us all sadness, and we don't want we to bring him up is like bringing up. It's like walking under a ladder. You know what I mean? Like, I think there was you wouldn't bring him up because it's bad luck. Right. Even if you knew, I think there's I don't know. I'm just trying to explain. There could be a sense of that. Like, whereas Mirabel putting the glass together, this is pertinent information for the problem that is at hand. Bruno hanging out, we'll just deal with that. But we don't talk about him because he's bad luck. Right.
Yeah.
It'll bring more calamity on us and me if I even mention him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's a good explanation. I mean, I just think, if you had super hearing, I think you'd hear so much throughout Always that you would just have so much going on. And, she probably knew he was living there, but she doesn't know, if he's there every day. I mean, we don't know if if he was really there hanging out all day. He could go out and go do different things. But I agree. That was towards the end when she said that. I do remember that when she was like, "Oh, I've heard him the whole time," and I was like,
Yeah.
"Wait, what?" I was like, "Why?"
Well, she's also more.
And she's a little bit like a daredevil.
That's what I was about to say that. Yeah, dude.
She's got maybe she's like Daredevil's, alter ego in a different universe.
And, Daredevil had to, when as a kid, learn to adjust to all those sounds, how to block stuff out and only hear and make sense of it all. So I totally was thinking Daredevil. She's like the Daredevil of Encanto.
It would be a really tough superpower to have, like that you could never turn it off.
All the secrets. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all the things that you don't want to hear that you have to hear.
It's best not to it's better not to think about it. It's better not to really.
But I still thought it was interesting that she knew. I did not catch the first times that I saw it that she knew he was in there.
Well,
So, anyway.
and her problem, Bruno told her that the man of her dreams would be promised to somebody else.
Sure.
Again, I've heard that song 1,000 times. I can quote you lyrics all day long. And that's a hooky part. Everything drops out.
That's one of the other things. One of the things that I do like about it is in his songs, he has so many different little sections. Like in what's the Pressure song called? Surface.
Surface.
Is it
surface pressure?
Surface
under the
pressure?
surface. Under the surface.
Under the surface. So like so many different. The drip, 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 and then it changes to the really slow part. I mean, that's such a Broadway thing. It's such a different thing than just pop writing. You don't usually have that in pop songs. So he's really combined that theatrical. It's just that's one of the things I think is so good.
And we've talked about it every single episode.
I was about to say that. We need to scratch Why I Love Disney, Scratch Wild. We're going to be the Encanto boys.
Podcast.
We're just going to spend every episode analyzing it.
Even when you pick it apart and find the things you don't like, we're still talking about it. I mean, that's Well, let's move on to something else. I also finished Boba Fett.
Okay, well, I was going to thank everyone for listening to our weekly Encanto segment. Stay tuned for next week when we talk about it a little bit more. But Boba Fett, let's wrap up with this. We all seen it now, so we can talk about it. What was your impressions of the whole series and the finale and the way it went?
First impressions, takeaways, what I remember. My favorite episodes were the ones with the Mandalorian. I think it was like 6 and 7. They introduced him back. I feel like we hadn't heard from him for a long time, so I was excited when he had his whole episode to him. The whole Luke Skywalker thing was so cool. I don't know if you guys how many throwbacks with Grogu that you guys caught, but him training. I mean, that as just a long time Star Wars fan, it was just really cool. And then another cool thing is we got some backstory to Luke's school for Jedi. In the new trilogy, we kind of just get all this new information, but only get a couple of scenes of like, okay, maybe this is what it looked like, and we got to see the building of like this new Jedi, temple almost, which was really cool. I mean, that was definitely my favorite part. Aside from Cad Bane, old Star Wars, Wild of the West feel. I mean, that was cool. Now, notice everything I just said were my favorite parts. Not a lot of that included actually Boba Fett. So that's a little almost of a skepticism of, I wish I would have gotten more out of this. Like when they create a whole series around a character, I want him to be my favorite part. I want that to be like oh my gosh, like they had something crazy planned and in store. And yes, like I like the character, and especially as the series went on, I enjoyed learning about his story. But when I look back on it, my favorite episodes, my favorite scenes didn't have much of them, which was interesting.
Well, the only thing that really surprised me, a lot of it surprised me. I thought it was great. I mean, I was a lot of the I didn't expect Mandalorian to be that prominent. Didn't expect Luke and Grogu to jump back in. I would have thought that we were going to get that at the beginning of the next season of Mandalorian. So but I like that it tied everything together.
Yeah, we
And
have a universe.
I've really liked this because again, I've known about this character since I was young, and I know he's got a fan following, and so I've always like, why is this character so well known? Because he was a small part of the franchise, but so I've enjoyed the backstory, how he got out of the what do you call it, Sarlacc? Was that where
Sounds
was he, a
good.
Sarlacc? Or
Sounds good to
anyway?
me.
Yeah, again, it could be something that sounds like that, but that thing that swallowed him. So I've enjoyed that. I like that they brought in the Tuscan people, that we saw some backstory things that we've not seen. But yeah, I thought that I wondered, because I said a few weeks ago, like, I'm really enjoying this series. It feels a lot like The Mandalorian to me, except there's no Grogu. Like the cute element that I think people fell in love with. I mean, you had Star Wars fans that loved Mandalorian, but we had a cultural revolution of people going around with these Baby Yoda T-shirts and things. Like, the kids fell in love with it. It's cute. Even if you don't like Star Wars, you might have liked this character. So I was like, did they mean to bring this back, or were they like a couple of episodes in and they went, we got to get people on board.
Yeah.
Let's put Grogu back in there, get the Mandalorian. Let's go ahead and mix this up.
Yeah.
And, but either way, I thought it was whatever their purpose was, if that was the intention for the beginning or partway through, I thought it was really effective. I thought the scenes with Luke were really good. Again, the technology I thought was better in this one than the little bit of that we got to see of Luke in The Mandalorian. This looked like, I thought that was great, but this really looked like, it didn't look like a digital effect to me.
Yeah,
I don't spot
fooled
those
me.
things like some people do, but I couldn't figure it out. It's like, and his voice, like they had somehow made his voice sound like his voice back then, and he's got his voice is lower now. He doesn't talk in that same 20-something register that he did back then. So I thought all of that was great. I liked that they brought it back around. The series really ended up being about them establishing their town and getting things together. I thought the character, what's the bad guy, the villain?
Cat Bane.
Cat Bane, man, what a character that is. The voice, Corey Burton, who's the voice actor for that, has also done a lot of Disney characters. He's the voice of Captain Hook and several other characters now, and that was an amazing voice. I want to go back and see the Clone Wars just to see that character. I thought that was a great villain, and it really felt like the Wild West. Then, I mean, again, I think they're celebrating even more of the Western meets samurai than even the original sometimes did. It's like they're paying tribute so much that you get healthier doses of it than I used to even.
Yeah,
notice.
Those are probably my two biggest takeaways from Boba Fett. Is one with Cad Bane being so awesome, it showed how the Clone Wars has been it's canon to the rest of the Star Wars, and in all the other kind of movies, you don't get a lot of representation. But the Clone Wars is it's like 8 seasons worth of Star Wars content that we just don't get a lot of representation, and as a result, people don't really watch it and really talk about it. So getting to see Cad Bane in real life was super cool. One thing you said earlier, Dad, about Baby Yoda, and just when you kind of compare The Mandalorian to Boba Fett, why I think Grogu had such of an effect on The Mandalorian was because it gave people who maybe didn't know a lot about Star Wars something to watch The Mandalorian. McKay, we watched The Mandalorian, and it gave people like McKay who haven't seen the Clone Wars and don't really know a lot about the Star Wars universe. She cared about Grogu. She cared about his kind of storyline, and it was interesting, and it was fun, and it was a cute little relationship, and it gave people a kind of a reason to watch. And I think that might be why Boba Fett maybe had a little bit more of a downfall or advantage compared to The Mandalorian, because it didn't really have that outlet for someone who isn't a Star Wars fan, who cares for the nostalgic, who would just watch it for fun. There wasn't a lot of that in there until Grogu came along.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also thought that another thing that I watched again. I watched the last 3 episodes again this week just to refresh that, and the whole idea where Luke tells Grogu, like, you can't be a Jedi if you're going to put these relationships over being a Jedi. And so I think, here we got Luke is off on a all by himself in a school doing training, and you've got Grogu and the Mandalorian were basically choosing each other. He took off his helmet for Grogu, and so now he's been kind of let go from the Mandalorians because he admitted that he had taken off his helmet. So that was it. I think people that's like heart connection stuff that people relate to, which is a little bit different than most of the Star Wars stories, which are a little bit more, to me, more like Boba Fett, where they're more about the action and not. But even Boba Fett, I think they tried to go. They gave him those people. They let him. He's getting a fondness. He rescued Finnick and saved her life, and you see that they've got a bond, and now he's helping these people, and he, it's like their characters are evolving, and they're going from these bounty hunter mindset of bring them in dead or alive to a little bit something softer. I actually thought one of the in the whole Mandalorian and Boba Fett scene, man, that first scene where Mandalorian comes in and he's looking for the guy, all the people that look like bulldogs, and he goes in, and it's like a butcher shop or something, and he goes into the guy and says, I'm looking for this. I mean, he pulls out that
oh my gosh
lightsaber and he cuts that guy right into it. I was like, that's not the guy that had Grogu on his back in a few episodes. It's almost like he had without Grogu, he was like more brutal than we've seen. Like, that was one of the most brutal scenes. I mean, again, I'm watching Daredevil where you're just watching somebody get beaten up or stabbed or every episode impaled every 10 minutes. Like, you can't hardly look. So that was like, whoa, that was a little Daredevil moment right there. That was pretty graphic for Mandalorian. And I thought, again, for young kids, I thought that was really graphic. I mean, you saw it. Not only did it cut the guy it cuts the table into. It was like, wow, pretty strong.
Well, I think it did move along the story a little bit in the character development of Mandalorian and Grogu. I'm going to start there. Mandalorian, but really Grogu, we learned a little bit more about. We saw the flashback to, we learned, they're connecting a lot of this, right? We learned that he was being trained as a Jedi in the temple when Palpatine ordered the clones to kill the Jedi, right? Was it Order 66? Right. Is that, right? Am I getting the right number? And you see him, it flashed him, he was there in the temple and somehow survived. So that was interesting. So we see like he has some sort of training already, before all of this. And so they're pulling all that in. That was really cool. I also do think Luke's training and the idea of you have to choose, you have to forsake what you know, or you can't be a Jedi. That's a consistent theme from episode 1 when Qui-Gon is debating with Obi-Wan whether or not to take Anakin in, he's too old to train, right? And actually they take him before the council, and Mace Windu and Yoda both say, no, you can't train him. And Obi-Wan goes against their wishes and trains him anyway. And you get all of those are kind of the undercurrents when Luke's telling him that you kind of, and that's the thing that's interesting about this. And when you go into Boba Fett's character in particular, there's the sense that can it stand alone here in the show, or do you need to know this going in for it to have meaning and depth and not to feel shallow? And I think one of the criticisms I would have is, I don't say criticisms, but
critiques.
A critique would be, if you didn't know Boba Fett before, kind of his backstory. And if you don't, especially if you don't remember him taking Han Solo captive and turning him over to Jabba, and you don't remember clearly him shooting at them when they were being executed, and them, and him being, him being an adversary to the good guys that we all know and love. I feel like you start this, and now we've had it. He showed up in The Mandalorian, so it's not like without any context, but I feel like we didn't get enough of his bad side to really appreciate his transformation. You sort of had to bring that with you. No, this is a bad, bounty. Cad Bane references it, right? He says, "You're a killer just like me. You're no different." And he's like trying to explain, I rule respect, not and you get this whole thing throughout that he's a changed person, and the backstory with the Sand People, what made him a changed person. But what we were missing was the evil, right? What are the terrible things you've done that make us care about your transformation to make you the guy you are right now? I think there's a gap there. And there's a lot of assumptions that that, he's kind of a bad, a bounty hunter that did all this stuff and froze Solo and turned him over to Jabba and been an enemy of the rebels, our characters that we know and love, but not really, right? We want to know, the gritty, gory details of what he's done and why he's kind of irredeemable, and now that he's changing, and why that would make the change matter more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're missing a little bit of that.
I think though at the same time it's similar to Mandalorian because he's killing people like crazy too. I mean, as a bounty hunter, I'll bring you in dead or alive. It doesn't matter to me. And they'll often say like, "What did I do?" It's like that doesn't matter. Like, there's a bounty on your head. It's my job to bring you in.
Well, see, I think that's the difference.
It's like Daredevil again. They rationalize, well, am I doing this for good or am I doing this for myself? Because Mandalorian, he acts like he's got this higher calling. This is the way. And he spoke and said, the Jedi idea is different from ours. Ours is all about loyalty and in unity. And it's like, that doesn't really fit with this, but you can just go out and, if there's a price on somebody's head, blow them away.
As a show, I think that's the interesting thing, is that can work for the Mandalorian because we've never seen him before. We didn't know anything about him. So they're painting this picture. And I think that worked really well. It was like a home run in every regard. That's what I'm saying. In contrast, Boba Fett feels like, since we know so much about him or enough about him, or there's assumptions made that we know, that we don't get that, the depth of character of this transformation. We needed at least one
episode where we could have really just a new updated reminder. Okay, this is who he is. This is who he was. Like, we needed like a dark episode where he just had no standard, no morals. Okay, this is it, and then this is the transition. I agree with that. There was actually this pretty cool thing, which I would encourage you guys to look up. He was actually supposed to make an appearance in the Clone Wars series, in the animated series, where I don't know if you guys caught Cad Bane in the final episode. He mentioned that they'd met before, and he talks about a last time they dueled.
Yeah,
and there's this concept art. It's like a phase 1 animation of Cad Bane and then a young Boba Fett, like between the years of being a really young child that you see in the prequels to the man bounty hunter. He's like these teenage years. They actually have a duel, and in the concept art they duel, and Cad Bane wins, and he hits him on the head of the armor, and that's where Boba Fett's dent is, which is really cool. And I didn't know that. But that was even just some more background that I'm like, okay, these are the two, craziest gun wielders, in the Star Wars galaxy, and that builds up so much more.
Well, and like you were saying, I think that, John David, you were saying a little earlier, the really Cad Bane coming from kind of in the Clone Wars kind of explored him a little bit. There is a wealth of characters that we could, in the bounty hunter world in particular. You got IG-88, you got Bosk, you got Greedo, who Han Solo, murders in the first Star Wars, and that's always been a controversial scene. That did Han shoot first or did Greedo shoot first? And can you, it's always been, it's an ongoing Star Wars controversy too. But like, there's all these, and then you get in this Clone Wars, you got the Night Sisters, you got the Geonosians, you got that can show all these beings and characters with different strengths and weaknesses can show up. And I almost expect them to with the Ahsoka series and with Kenobi, that what's really cool is when Cad Bane walks out, that's a template for, oh my goodness, what's going to come in these next series? Who are we going to get to see and experience? And they seem to be knocking them out of the park so far.
That just pumped me up, Dustin, dude. I'm ready. I'm ready for these new series. I mean, I mean, there's so much content. I mean, with Kenobi, I mean, Ahsoka. I mean, again, if you watch the Clone Wars, you'll care about Obi-Wan so much more, and you'll understand his character. I mean, again, we've talked about this whole battle with the Jedi of connections, no relationship, and in the Clone Wars, Kenobi even has a love interest, and he said, I chose the Jedi way. I chose the Jedi way. And again, with Anakin, you see that. Even with Luke, me and McKay had never seen the original trilogy, so we watched all three this past week. And even with Luke, the first conflict he has with being a Jedi is he's being trained under Yoda, and Yoda's like, you can't go save them. Like, Darth Vader's going to be there. You're barely even a Jedi. He's going to either kill you or turn you to the dark side. You're not ready. And Luke, again, new to it, he's just like, no, I've got to go save my friends. I've got to go help them. And he almost dies. I mean, that's when he loses his hand and he almost gets defeated.
Well, what I love is that it's seeming, if they keep doing this and they keep landing really well with Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Jon Favreau at the helm, it's feeling like a universe. It's feeling Marvel-esque a little bit. And if they can keep this going, let's forget about, you can keep Force Awakens and all that in the canon. There's that. But now we're moving into something that can really, like, I think, explode and take off. And all of these series can have, like, Ahsoka's been in this, right? And Ahsoka's a very influential and again, she even mentions to Luke, she was the apprentice of Anakin, like his dad. You know what I mean? Like, and that's to me, like, that was all through the Clone Wars, right? And those are just things that, to a fan, you can see these things explored. She's going to turn up in the Kenobi series. She has to, right? It would be weird if she didn't. But all of this is, I think, setting up for maybe we even get movies out of this, that sort of a new series of movies with these characters that we're falling in love with. There's some magic here that hasn't been there for a while.
I mean, really just a plan of where they're going with it. That's where the new trilogy went wrong, is they just had a new director every time, and it just seemed like they lacked a broad plan and perspective on what they wanted to do with it.
Yeah, I definitely feel like with these that we have fans in command. Favreau and Dave, is it Filoni? I mean, they are such fans. Did you guys watch on Disney Plus? It's like Under the Helmet or Behind the Helmet.
Yeah,
the documentary. It's really good, and it basically just shows how they were going to have a whole troop of guys. So they created the suit, but then, like, budget constraints, they just were going to have to keep it one guy. And he goes, George Lucas said, "Well, we'll make him a bounty hunter." But he even talks about the guy how he painted it silver, and then he painted it green on top and scratched it so that it would look like metal underneath, and how he dented it. And it's like, again, when you realize, like, all of this was just started with a costume. It started with a helmet that kind of mystified everybody because it had that medieval. I mean, it brought that in. You've got, within the samurai and the Western, now you've got a medieval knight look going on, and how they just made it all work. You should go check that out. I will. And they talk about the toys, like some of the most expensive toys from the 70s. They're all like Boba Fett. Wow. They interview a guy that's got like thousands of items in his collection, and they show all this stuff. It's pretty amazing.
Cool. Well, a cool thing before we wrap up, a little question, because I've seen it all over the internet, and I want to see if you guys thought anything about this. So again, Dustin, you mentioned it. We get a little sneak peek of Grogu seeing Order 66 and the Jedi being defeated and taken down by the clones. So now there's a question of how the heck did Grogu get out of the temple? Like, did someone take him away? Did the clones just not care for him? I mean, obviously they would have known he was training to be a Jedi. How do you guys think he got out of there? Do you guys have any guesses?
I wondered that. And I also, it looked like he was in a pouch or he was in something wrapped up. And so I thought, is he on somebody's back? Is someone holding him while this is happening? Or is he just standing there?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Well,
He's so little. Maybe he hid.
There's
But we know Anakin killed them all.
Exactly.
Even the younglings was the terrible line from Padme.
Yeah.
And
maybe he already had enough power. Maybe he did a.
Well,
maybe
so
he
I saw
did
two
something.
guesses that are, one's educated, one's just a hope, that really drew my attention. And the one that was just like, I don't think this could be true, but would be really cool if it was true, was, it seems like every Star Wars fan holds on to the fact that you never really see Mace Windu dead. And that even though he shoots him out of the window and electrifies him and he goes flying, that somehow Mace Windu survived. So I've heard some people guess, okay, maybe he was undercover and nobody knew he was alive, so he was able to sneak in and get Grogu. But I don't know if that's really could be true. But the one I think is more more likely that happened was R2-D2, and that, just like you said, Dad, that you kind of see him. It's almost like he's looking through like a glass, like he's being held through some glass. Well, in the Clone Wars, it goes through R2-D2's able to hold some stuff in his middle compartment. So maybe Baby Yoda is able to fit in there, because again, Anakin slaughtering younglings during all this craziness. So maybe R2 knew, so he goes over to the temple to try and save some people, and Grogu's the only one he can fit. I mean,
R2's like, there's the only one small enough to get in my pouch.
So that was actually, I was like, oh my gosh, like that adds up. Like R2-D2 could see it going south and dip and go get Grogu and then get out of there. And of course, none of the clones would have been trying to kill R2 because he's just a droid. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, my last question was, can at the very end, after the credits, we see the bath, and we see someone's in the bath. It looked like it was the marshal that we saw get shot by Cad Bane. It looked like he was the one in the bath this time, and Boba made a comment like several people needed to spend some time, but we looked like we saw the marshal. Did you guys think that was the marshal?
I actually didn't catch it.
I'm going to have to watch it again. You're right. I think there is a mystery there.
Well, and then a character turns around, that I didn't recognize. He was African-American with long black hair, and he pulls out some light like a knife, and you're like, what's...
Oh, no, that's okay. So I do remember now. Okay. So my assumption is, and I could be wrong, that they put the marshal in, he's basically dead. They're trying to revive him. That's the guy who, remember, saves Fennec, Fennec Shan. So he's the guy that does all the modifications on the kids.
Oh, gotcha.
So he's going and has the saw out. So he's starting to operating on whoever it is in there.
I thought it was the marshal.
I assumed it was the marshal, but hey, maybe it's Cad Bane.
Well, actually, I was going to say a minute ago that the one... I wish we could have gotten a little bit of the Darth Vader spinning out into the universe with Cad Bane, because that if he's really gone, that was such a great villain. I would have liked for him to come back, and they were still having to deal with him. That would have been a great, because that, I don't know how you're going to top that villain. That was so good.
Really cool.
It was so good.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we're now an hour, 12 minutes into this, so we need to really wrap up, but we thank you guys for listening. And actually, I've really enjoyed this conversation today. I always love talking I think my favorite thing to do is to unpack all these shows that we love so much. Like there's so much depth and meaning and stuff to pull out of there. I love, and when you're a fan of it, it's just fun to talk about. It's like you would with your buddies in the car ride or whatever else. And I'm glad that you guys are all joining us with this. And if you have questions, if you want to get in on this conversation too, man, check us out at whyilovedisney.com. We're also on Twitter and Instagram. Check us out, all those places. Also, if you wouldn't mind, share this episode with somebody and leave us a 5-star review, either on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, wherever you can review. That helps us out and get the word out to more people. But more than anything, we thank you for your time and we appreciate you. David, JD, thanks for you guys for jumping in here with us today, and can't wait till next time.
All right.
See y'all next week.
Good times.